Welcome to another episode of the Bleeding Edge of Digital Health, joined by today's guest, Matthieu De Buele. Did I get that right?
Almost. It's De Buele. It's very
De
close.
Buele. De Buele. I knew I'd hack it up.
Perfect.
Co-founder and CEO of an extremely exciting cloud-based software as a medical device technology in the structural heart space. I guess the best way to describe it would be structural heart procedural planning platform. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, good. Well, yeah, no, I appreciate you. Appreciate you making some time to join us today. I know we've tried to get together at TCT and a couple times in the past, so it was good to finally put a face to the name here, and excited to share the technology with the audience for sure. So appreciate you joining us.
With great pleasure. Thanks for
Yeah.
having me.
And for the audience, where are you joining in from? Are you in Belgium? The company's based in
Yes,
Belgium, right?
the company and I'm based in Ghent, very nice city in the north of Belgium.
Excellent, excellent. I've never been to Belgium, but it is on the wish list. So, well, let's jump right in. I wanted to, I guess the best way to start. Let's start with the use case or the problem you guys are really trying to solve, and maybe if you can tie in there, because usually it's related. Maybe if you can tie in there the origin story of the company and kind of what the genesis of starting the company for you was, and then we can jump into the tech after that.
Okay, perfect. So, say from an origin perspective, I founded the company together with my partner in crime, Peter Mortier, both after our PhDs at Ghent University. In that period, we had we had gained expertise in predictive modeling of cardiovascular implants. So we use a technology called finite element analysis or mechanical modeling to really design products. And we decided to make a company to give that service to medical device companies. So we founded FEops 2009. And the early years, we worked together with very big companies like the Boston Scientifics and the Medtronics of this world, to very small startup companies, helping them design products, which is really cool. But we thought that there was more potential. And then in 2013, 14, we started looking at the structural heart space and more in detail on how these interventions were being planned, because more and more transcatheter-based technologies were coming out. And traditionally, the planning was done by taking a medical image of a patient, taking a software package, and then with a ruler doing some measurements, and then based on that, trying to imagine how the interaction would be between the device anatomy and make a choice of a specific device size. So we said, probably we can do better than that. And that's why we said, okay, let's try to build a predictive technology that allows to understand upfront how the device will interact with that specific anatomy in order to, let's say, guide the physician to the optimal treatment choice.
That's incredible. Was the technology that you guys were working on prior to this, was it software enabled? Was it software related, or was it more like a physical design type?
No, it's really software enabled. So we, let's say, were experts in software computer modeling of these devices. But let's say the first couple of years, the focus was really on modeling the devices. How strong is it? How flexible is it? Will it break because of fatigue fracture? And the complex thing and the nut we cracked, I will put it like that, is to make a patient-specific computer model of a particular patient. Because of a medical device, that's relatively straightforward. You have the design, you just have a drawing of it. You have material properties that you can do mechanical testing on the metals. But from a human perspective, you cannot just do testing on every patient individually. So you have to find ways to model these biological tissues in such a way that these computer models also don't take ages to run. And there a lot of credits go to Peter, where we started initially collecting retrospective data of TAVR patients, where we had both pre and post-op CT of these patients. And by doing that, we could reverse engineer how to model these patients. And this led us to where we are now, where we've modeled, I think, close to 9,000 patients now to date.
So it's basically like jumping into the tech, it's basically like you're creating a digital twin
Yeah.
of the patient and then modeling against that, right? Let's jump into the technology. Walk us through, kind of what the technology does and kind of what the clinical workflow would be for a customer.
Yeah. So if we look from a technology perspective or a workflow perspective, we have chosen from day one to start building a collaborative environment. The structural heart space is a typical example of a space with several devices in that market. There is a lot of guidance given from the industry to the physicians in implanting these devices, in selecting the device, etc. So we want to create a platform where all these players, the imaging people, the implanters, the device reps, could work together. And then having
kind
a
of an open
cloud-based
architecture type environment.
Yeah, so at least an architecture where we had, let's say, a platform where everybody could log into, look at the same data, and then make a joint decision to really, let's say, foster that heart team approach. So that's why we decided to build it native cloud-based. So it's a website on steroids, which is, of course, also secure. But the idea is that the physician or the product specialist, they upload the medical images of the patient. It goes to our cloud. We have a human in the loop, so there's a lot of AI involved, but we keep a human in the loop at this moment in time, just to make sure the AI doesn't screw up and that we can correct if needed. That human loop in time will go away, but for now it's there. So we have somebody checking the quality of the images. With AI, we do full 3D reconstruction of the anatomy. We do all the anatomical measurements. And then on top of that, we run different treatment scenarios of different device sizes in different positions. And then as the use case, for example, left atrial appendage occlusion, there within 24 hours, we deliver these results back to the people that submitted it.
Go ahead. Is the so the scans that get uploaded, is it a CT, MRI?
Yes, CT. So currently our main focus is on CT because let's say in structural heart it's the leading imaging modality. On the LAA use case, there's still a mixture of CT and echo, but let's say CT is winning ground because you just have much more accurate imaging. But let's say it's mainly CT. But we have, let's say, developed the technology in such a way that it's compatible with any scanner and also with clinical grade image quality. So we have been using images from, let's say, different sites, from the top-notch scanners to, let's say, the more mainstream scanning facilities. With all these scanners, we can do what we want to do.
And so when you guys, so once you've uploaded the CT into the software, then you can model that against any of the devices currently on the market, so that the physician could see, is a Medtronic valve a better fit for this patient, or an Edwards valve, or a Boston valve, or is it only, are you only partnered with certain companies? How does that work?
Well, we can model devices that we have in our library. If we look on the LAA side, there we have all devices, but there are only two main players to date. Of course, J&J is kicking in, but it will probably still take a bit of time. But there we have the last generation devices from both Abbott and Boston Scientific. On the TAVR side, or TAVI side, this is not FDA cleared yet. There we have a CE mark version under the MDR, where we have the devices from Boston Scientific and Medtronic. What is very important in how we have built and positioned the technology is two aspects. Aspect number one is we do not give any recommendation. So what we do is we take the images, we do several options, different sizes and different positions. And for all of these, we provide the simulation results back to the physician, who in the end, based on that information, of course, the IFU of the device and other information source, takes the decision. So it's not that we make a suggestion. We don't think we are in the right position to do that. We think they're better positioned, and of course, also from a liability perspective, that has an impact. From a device comparison perspective as well, at the moment, we have chosen to provide a technology where the physician needs to select the vendor up front, and then we model the different treatment scenarios for that particular vendor. This sometimes leads to the fact that they see that for that particular vendor, in whatever size, whatever position we put the device, this will not end up good. Then they might select another device and then implant another one. But currently, we do not do a device comparison on a per patient specific level.
Got it. So they have to pick, okay, I want to, I want to measure it against Medtronic. And if they don't like the result, then they come back and say, do it with the Boston device.
But not even coming back at that, what we've seen in these use cases is that, for example, sometimes they see that if device manufacturer A doesn't give a solution, they typically don't have 45 devices on their shelf and then just take the other one if they feel comfortable in doing that. But it's let's say we don't give recommendations and we don't do comparison at this moment in time.
Yeah, that's smart. Keep the liability off of you guys and let physicians make that final decision. So you guys, you've got your FDA cleared for LAA, left atrial appendage occlusion. You've got TAVR hopefully coming, and that's CE marked, and then mitral valve would be next, I'm guessing.
Yeah, then so from a technology perspective, we went through a de novo to get our LAO workflow cleared because there was just not a predicate on the market. And that's the cool thing in this space, that it has taken us some time, but like we said in the intro, bringing novel medical technology to market is something that is running a couple of marathons. But we are really creating a novel space because this aspect of predictive pre-planning is getting really more and more recognition. And one of the reasons is I'm pretty proud of that. We did a randomized clinical trial in this domain, again, in the LAA space, where we really have shown black on white what the impact of this technology is. Because since day one, everybody was enthusiastic because, listen, I mean, it makes sense to just see upfront how the device will interact. It will help me in my guidance to the right device. But clinically, what does it mean? So the only way to address it is to run a study. So we did a randomized clinical trial. I think we're the only company in the world that has done this in the structural heart space to have randomized clinical trial data, where we went head-to-head with traditional preoperative planning. And traditional preoperative planning is, again, taking that same CT scan, but just with a ruler doing some measurements and comparing that with the IFU. So let's say we had a 200-patient trial, all patients with CT. So there was no mix between CT and echo, so everything CT-based. And then what we learned is that in the control arm of our study, there, for example, on average, physicians used 1.2 devices per patient, which is very normal nowadays in the LAA space, because the LAA is a very complex morphology. So it's very challenging to do a measurement and select the right device. So often, unfortunately, they do the best they can. They try a device, but then they see in the patient that the match is not that well, so they take it out and put a new one in. So if you look in literature, on average, people use 1.2 to 1.4 devices for LAO. In our trial, we had experts. That's also why I think we were at the lower end of that band in the control arm. What we've seen when they get access to this digital twin, this predictive technology, is that they really see how the device is behaving, how it is compressing. And this allowed to reduce that number of devices from 1.2 to 1.03, which is the closest to one anyone ever got. And I think we will ever get, because, of course, it's a computer model. It's not 100% accurate, but it's a drastic reduction of number of devices. And of course, from there you gain, because you gain efficiency, procedure 25% faster, less contrast use, less repositioning. Which also has an impact on outcome, because that's also something we measured 45 days after the intervention. We just saw better sealing. And there's now also more and more evidence that even small leaks matter in terms of risk of stroke post-LAO. So with our technology, we had both an impact on making these procedures more efficient, so we can let physicians do more procedures per day, or at least better procedures or faster, or do also additional interventions. But also on an outcome perspective, make sure that the sealing is done, which of course is the goal of this intervention. And so that being said, this is really has led us in a position where now we are rolling this out commercially in the US. Also, since the beginning of this year, there's now a novel reimbursement code, and there credits go to the people from DASI. I think we're building this space together with them. So there's now a novel reimbursement code where there is a reimbursement of up to close to $1,000 per patient for this predictive pre-planning, where again, I think in the LA space, FEops is the only company out there.
Yeah, that's incredible.
You alluded to other therapies coming. So the next step for us is definitely bringing our TAVR workflow to the United States, because one of the interesting challenges there is that if you look at the demographics of a TAVI population, people are getting younger. So it is absolutely sure that these younger patients, they will highly likely outlive their implants, which are probably lasting 10 to 15 years. So if you already know that upfront, it becomes very important that you select the right device and put it in the right position of your first TAVR in order to have options later down the road and not block the access to your coronary. So let's say this whole concept of lifetime management, where you have to imagine how a first device is deforming, how a second device is deforming, and how in 3D this will impact your access to the coronary arteries, is extremely challenging with, again, this traditional pre-planning. And there we have pretty unique tech that we will give in the hands of US physicians normally by the end of the year.
So with your technology, can you, I've got so many questions. So with that technology, can you actually model out, like, here's how this valve will be seated and sealed for this procedure, here's how it's likely to morph over time, and then if you were to put a second one in, here's what that would look like downrange? Do you have the ability to do that? Wow.
Again, there are some assumptions if you make these models, but what we are doing now is, and that's, I think, key for FEops. I think the fact that we get recognition is that we validate every step we take, because it's just a novel market we're creating. And there, for example, we have an ongoing validation study where we're not only collecting 2 CTs, preoperative and postoperative, but we're collecting 3 CTs, also the CT, the post-CT after the second TAVR device. So let's say we're building a cohort of patients where we have preoperative CT, postoperative CT after the index TAVR, postoperative after the second TAVR, and from that we can learn indeed how to model the first implant, how to model the second implant, and then we can do the same thing like what we do today. We can model based on a preoperative CT the implantation of the first TAVI. But then at the same point, we can already model, for example, a device from Medtronic, we can model a device from Edwards inside at different nodes to see what will be the impact of that second TAVR, because sometimes they are now planning leaflet modification, which is very interesting, but it also comes at a risk and a cost. So with our technology, we will be able to really triage patients on, okay, but who benefits from which leaflet modification technology? Again, later down the road.
That's incredible. And what and you said that that you hope that the TAVR device will be launched in the US this year, you said, by the end of this year? You hope?
Yeah, I will we're aiming by the end of this year. Might be Q1 of next year, but that's we're on that.
And then
roadmap.
for the mitral, when are you targeting for CE mark there, and ideally, when could we see that in the US?
On the mitral side there, of course, we're a little bit dependent on the devices that also take their time to come to market. I think probably, of course, 10.9 is there in Europe, but I think market will, let's say, increase its speed of adoption once these transfemoral devices come in, or let's say these transeptal devices. But what is cool there is that we have some data in the public domain. There, again, it's a 3D problem. What is the main challenge in mitral valve replacement is risk of LVOT obstruction. Put a device in the mitral position, it will have a degree of obstruction to your LVOT. Current traditional planning technology allows you to take a device shape, the nominal size of the device, or maybe some symmetric compression, and you have to put it manually on the preoperative CT, and then estimate yourself, okay, I think it will be compressed like this, and I think it will sit there. This is something that we again solved. We have data on multiple patients where we did collaboration, for example, with Medtronic. This data is in the public domain, where we have shown that with our technology, we can again predict how the device will sit, how it will deform, and the resulting LVOT area matches very nicely with postoperative CT. So this has been validated.
Wow.
If you compare that with the traditional approach of doing an overlay of, let's say, a cone shape of that device, then you see that they're just over-conservative. So currently, there are patients not being treated because the way they're being screened, and I think that's also one of the logical explanations why these patients' trials take very long, because there are just a lot of screen outs, and all these device companies are, of course, looking for the same patient population. But with our technology, we have black on white, and we presented that at the AVAM meeting of Dr. Modine in Bordeaux in June of last year, where we have proof black and white that, again, this concept of predictive pre-planning will become crucial. So technology-wise, we're ready. We're just waiting for the devices to enter the market.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. And and you're right. It's a very, very astute point. All of these companies are chasing the same patients, and everybody wants pristine data. So they'll screen out patients, that probably could be done, and certainly it sounds like could be done with your technology, but they'll screen those patients out because they're all chasing the unicorn patient that will
but then
ideally
again,
get them to approval, right?
The challenge comes that once the approval is there, of course, the market is there with these patients that will need treatment. So if you look at it from an IFU perspective, I think it will become crucial in that domain that there is adequate pre-planning, just to make sure that markets can take the size it's supposed to take.
Yeah, I'm always interested how is the FDA to work with? Because anytime you guys have been at the tip of the spear in terms of the introduction of AI as a into software as a medical device. How were they to work with in terms of the regulatory process? And when you did these studies, were they I'm guessing they retrospective, right? You didn't have to do prospective studies yet.
Correct. So we I think we have a very good experience with the FDA, definitely on this predictive pre-planning. As I said, that we're just not a predicate for the claims that we really wanted to make with the technology. So we have looked at doing it through a 510K, which probably would have been faster, but then if you can't make the claims that you want to make, what's the point? So I'd say we went through the hassle of doing that de novo, which of course takes time. So I think it took us 2-3 years to get there. Yeah. But we had a very good dialogue with them on how to run the verification and the validation. So let's say once everything was clear, it was a relatively smooth process. And indeed, one of the most important things for us as a company is that we were able to use retrospective data to show the accuracy of the technology. Again, this comes to the claims that we're making that we don't give any recommendations. We just we model different treatment scenarios with a given accuracy, and that accuracy is shown based on retrospective data of dozens and dozens of patients where we compared it post-operative CT.
Yeah, let's go back to something you talked about a minute ago. So you talked about, like, obviously, less time under anesthesia, which is obvious. I mean, the clinical benefits of this are obvious, but but operating room and interventional suite time is oftentimes that's a tough argument to make for hospitals, because they talk about it as, being so expensive when they're trying to keep a device out. But when you can save time, they don't want to hear that because it's soft cost. But when you're talking about decreasing it from, 1.4 to 1.2 to 1.4% or devices per case, and you're taking that down to 1, they pay for all those devices, right? Like, if they use, how does that work? Do they pay for, if they open 2 devices for a patient, put one in, pull it out, and put a second one in, they still have to pay for both devices, right? Or?
But that depends if the second intervention is successful or not. So I think the argument of device cost is very interesting for a device manufacturer. even though that cost of goods is reasonable for these devices. But it's just giving their customers more confidence and making them more efficient. If you talk to physicians, there's nothing that frustrating than going into a cath lab, not really knowing what will happen. And then you put the device in and not knowing, okay, but is this now the optimal result, or should I take it out and put a new one in?
Yeah.
Because just putting a device in there and being happy that it stays there is not enough anymore. You really need to seal it to make sure there's no risk of stroke.
Right.
So to, let's say, give physicians more confidence, I think the confidence level is increasing with our type of technology. The cost reduction becomes very important for a hospital when there are aborted cases. By, again, some questionnaires that we did with several key US hospitals, this can go up to 6% of LAO procedures that are aborted. Meaning, patient on the table, try device, unfortunately it doesn't work out, try second one, it doesn't work, and patient goes off the table untreated. At that moment in time, the device cost is for the hospital. So this is very expensive. And that's the dollars that we can save, because with our technology, we have a 100% success rate in our FEops HEARTguide arm. So this is a number that definitely can go down. We don't have black on white data for US hospitals in terms of reduction of aborted cases, but all the sites that are now, let's say, starting to use it, give the feedback that that number is going down, and that's also the reason why they just keep using it.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are hard dollar savings. I mean, you might not be able to put an absolute figure on it, but I can guarantee you the CFO of that hospital knows exactly how many procedures got aborted last year and the cost, because they don't get to bill for that procedure, right? If the patient doesn't walk out of the hospital with the implant, then they don't get to bill for that procedure. And that's compelling. That's very compelling.
And what was also interesting is that we saw the randomized clinical trial that we did was prior to our FDA authorization. So we did that trial in Europe and Canada. But what we did in the meantime is we partnered up with Devi Nair. She's a top KOL in the LAA space, who did a series of close to 100 patients in her hospital using our technology. And she really, confirmed all the results that we found in Predict LAA. That's the randomized trial that we did. That was only the amulet device from Abbott. But in her clinical experience, there was also the majority of the devices were from Boston Scientific. So let's say we have now data globally, European patients, Canadian patients, and US patients, where we have seen that impact in terms of efficiency gain. And that data was presented as a late breaker at the AF symposium a couple of weeks ago.
That's incredible. So then I want to make sure we touch on, you guys have a kind of a third component of the business, which is actually you work with the industry companies directly, correct?
Yes. So we work with them directly for the design of their devices or for supporting them in their clinical trials. Because, like as we mentioned, some of these current screening methods are not as accurate as they could be with currently available technologies. So we are helping device companies, for example, to give an example, again, this is in the public domain. We have been partnering with Tricaris or Tricaris, a German tricuspid company, where we have helped them from early design concepts up until now, also in their clinical phase. But we're doing the same for also the large companies out there, because with our technology, if you look on the TAVR side, we have, for example, built predictors for complications such as PVL, leakage, and conduction abnormalities. And this becomes pretty cool because we have a database of thousands of diseased human hearts. And what we can do is test to see, okay, if you put a design A and B in there, do we see decreased risk of conduction abnormalities in the TAVR space? And this is something which is very hard to do in animal trials. So it's a very cost-efficient way to just make sure that the device you go in trials with is your best possible bet.
Yeah, boy, that not only does that save time, can save a lot of money and a lot of heartache for founders, as you know. That's incredible. And you guys are getting some really exciting publicity out there, and rightfully so. And I'm happy to see that. We were talking before we jumped on camera here, and things always feel really gradual until they feel sudden. And I feel like you guys are kind of coming into your moment where
Yeah.
this is starting to really take off and get a lot of notoriety, and deservedly so. So, want to be able to get you out of here on time. Really appreciate you coming on as a guest, and wish you guys continued success. I can't wait till the valve technologies are available here in the U.S. We've got plenty of patients that can benefit from it. That's for sure. My mom being one of them. She's got mitral valve disease and is kind of waiting to be able to have it done percutaneously. And so it's everybody I know seems to know somebody that has
Mm.
valvular disease, and TAVR and mitral will be here soon, have played a big part in making that a much easier procedure. So, thanks again for coming on. Wishing you continued success, and let's definitely stay in touch as you guys continue to build the great organization that you've got there.
Perfect. Thank you very much for the talk. And if we can help you with the image of your mother, feel free to send them our way.
Appreciate it. That's it for this edition of The Bleeding Edge of Digital Health. We'll catch you guys on the next episode.